What is going on, guys? This is 15 cards you should be playing in Commander. I have read this. This is my third time trying to make this video. I was going strong. I'm very upset right now. I very much messed up. I put Viridian Revel in a slot where Night Soils should have been. But this is 15 cards that you should be playing in Commander. This video was heavily inspired by EDH deck building, so if you guys get a chance, please check his channel out. If you're watching this video, you probably definitely know who he is, but I will leave a link in the description to his channel anyway, along with the list of cards that's going to be in this video. Those will be in the link as well. Not the same link. Different links, might I add. Different links. And finally, if you guys enjoy this video, please like and subscribe, man. I've never said that in my life, but I feel like I should start saying it more. I don't know. Maybe it'll help. Maybe it won't. We'll find out. We'll find out. So without further ado, let's get into this video with the first one. That's going to be Biforce. Yes, I'm using Google Slides for this video. I don't know how to edit. Biforce is in 14,247 decks. It is X and a red sorcery. Destroy X target artifacts. I think this card goes crazy, guys. The slot's directly underneath Vandal Blast for me. You can blow up pretty much whatever you need whenever you want. It is at sorcery speed, so that faults it a little bit. But in a mono red deck, especially a black red deck, you know, those decks really want this card, I feel like. And I feel like it belongs in more than 2% of decks. Let's go on to the next one. Dark Deal. This is 2 and a black. Each player discards all the cards in his or her hand that draws that many -1. This is a sorcery. It is a wheel in black, guys. I feel like this should definitely see more play than it does. Discard decks definitely want to see this card. Any graveyard strategies wants to see this card. Even just black draw. Like, this card is really good. I feel like wheels are always good. I feel like it should be seen more than in 18,813 decks. I know the EDH rec isn't exactly 100% accurate all the time. I've only seen this card cast once, though, so I don't know. Definitely seems to be adding up, at least from my perspective. I feel like it definitely needs to be seen more. Let's move on to Angelic Renewal, 1 and a white enchantment. Whenever a creature is put into your graveyard from the battlefield, you may sacrifice Angelic Renewal. If you do, return that card to the battlefield. So this card is Reanimation in white. It's an enchantment, so it triggers your enchanter strategies. I feel like this card definitely belongs in Sithis and Tuvasa style decks. I think it's a great include, almost an auto include for mono white for me personally. I've been running this card since I made my Sithis deck, which was one of my first decks that I ever made in Commander. I feel like just Reanimation in white is pretty great, you know? I think white is probably the second best at actual just hard reanimation. But I think this is one of the better cards, and I don't think it sees enough play to justify how good it is. It's only in 5,278 decks, and I know there's more enchantment decks around than that. I know you guys are missing out on Angelic Renewal. Let's move on to Viridian Revel. This is a 1 green enchantment. Whenever an artifact is put into an opponent's graveyard from the battlefield, you may draw a card. Guys, this card goes motherfucking ham. Treasures are going rampant in the format. Treasures draw you cards. If you're expecting to see treasures at any capacity, I would recommend slotting this in your deck almost ASAP. For me, I sometimes run this over Rhystic Study. I think it just draws that many cards. I think it's that good of a card. It's only ran in 3,548 decks. That's not a lot. It's a green card. And it kind of synergizes a little bit, you know? Like, green's really good at destroying artifacts. So If anything, you cast this, then you next turn you cast a Reclamation Sage, you blow up something, and you draw a card. I feel like that's pretty good, personally. Let's move on to the next one. It is Stranglehold. 3 and a red enchantment. Your opponents can't search libraries. If an opponent would begin an extra turn, that player skips that turn instead. This is a great hate bearer piece, especially in mono red decks, to me personally. I think mono red probably wants this the most. It does say your opponents, so you can still search, which is really good. It does say opponents, so you can still begin extra turns, which is really good. I don't know how often you see turns decks. I don't see them very often, but I know it's a pretty popular strategy in the format. But tutors happen all the time. This stops fetch lands, your normal tutors like Demonic Tutor. It stops Cultivate, man. Like, Stranglehold is such a good card, and it's only in 8,074 decks. Up next, we've got Ethereal Haze. 1 white, instant arcane spell. Prevent all damage that would be dealt by creatures this turn. This card has saved me hard, guys. This is not... I've checked the errata text just to make sure. This does not just stop combat damage. So I'll put you guys in a scenario. My opponent, let's say opponent A, cast a Walking Ballista. Okay, X equals... a lot, right? So Walking Ballista was basically infinitely big. He was going to ping us down for infinite damage. In response, I cast Ethereal Haze. Prevent all damage that would be dealt by creatures this turn. So when Walking Ballista ETB'd, there was nothing to ping. He couldn't ping us. He couldn't ping our creatures. There was absolutely nothing to ping. And as soon as I got priority, I blew up the Walking Ballista with, I don't know, like a wilt or something, which will be, I think that's the next card in this video. But it sees 0% in play. It's only 2,068 decks, guys. I think this is probably the best Fog in the format. Definitely better than Fog. Maybe the free one, Obscuring Haze, is better. I don't know, but I think Ethereal Haze definitely belongs in more decks than it is in. Up next, we've got Wilt. Look at that, boys. So this says, 1 and a green, instant, destroy target artifact or enchantment, and it has cycling for 2. I feel like this is a great removal spell. I don't see it a lot. I know there's a lot of removal spells. This is probably the most underwhelming card on the list, but I feel like it should see more play than it does. It's only in 1% of decks that it can go in. I feel like this definitely slots over Crows and Grip, which I feel like is ran a lot more. But that cycling text, I feel like that's worth the include. Cycling is pretty good. When there's nothing to blow up, there's nothing good to blow up. You just cycle it, draw a card, and maybe you find something that more matters to the moment. I know that sentence didn't really make sense. And just to mess with you guys, we're not even going to address it. We'll move on to the next card, which is Night Soil. This card is green for an enchantment. It has an activated ability. Pay 1, exile 2 creature cards from a single graveyard. Make a 1/1 Saproling. So I feel like this is decent graveyard hate. Obviously, this isn't the best graveyard hate. But for an Enchantress strategy, I feel like this is worth an include. I ran this in my Sithis deck, and it never really... I don't think I was ever in a situation where I was like, oh man, I can't exile that because there's no other creatures in his graveyard. I understand this isn't going to turn off a turn 1 Razaketh with an Entomb and Reanimate, but... most of the time, I feel like if they're trying to do something, you can exile things from their graveyard in response. That's why I think it's worth the include. It gets you a draw from most Enchantress strategies. It's in 0% of decks, only 2,842. I feel like that's just not enough for this card to be as good as it is. Up next, we have Lurking Predators, probably the most popular card on this list. 4 green enchantment. Whenever an opponent casts a spell, reveal the top card of your library. If it's a creature card, put it on the battlefield. Otherwise, you may put that card on the bottom of your library. Now, guys, this card is almost in 15,000 decks, but I feel like it should be in so many more, right? So this card, if you're a creature-heavy deck and you're in green, like, run this card, right? It's so good to always get your creatures just for free, especially if you have a lot of ETBs. So if you have a lot of ETB creatures, you're in green, and you're just overall a heavy creature deck, even if you don't have a lot of ETBs, getting free creatures is always a good thing. And it's only in 2% of decks. There's definitely more than 2% of green decks that run a lot of creatures. So I feel like Lurking Predators should definitely see more than it does now. Up next, we have Telepathy. 1 blue enchantment. Your opponents play with their hand revealed. I'll give credit where credit is due. This card is played in Send Triplets and Lord Xanathar about 50% of the time, which is the 2 decks that probably want this card the most. But that's a 1-drop enchantment that gives you constant information, along with your other opponents having constant information. And I think constant information is such a good thing, even in the most basic strategies. And just to see 7,400 decks play this card, I feel like that's just not enough. I know I'm feeling kind of like a broken record right now, but that's just how this list be, man. This is underplayed cards that I don't think are played enough. And Telepathy happens to be one of them. Up next, we have Equipoise. 2 and a white enchantment from Visions. It says, during your upkeep, for each land target player controls in excess of the number of lands you control, target land he or she controls phases out. Repeat this process for artifacts and then for creatures. Equipoise is only played in 263 decks. I feel like it should be more than that. I don't think this card is awesome by any means, but it's definitely not a bad card. I have never seen this card before in my life until I had a random button on Scryfall a couple times. This card came up and I was like, whoa, that's kind of good. I'm about to, play my game-winning combo. Say I'm playing Helia Ballista. My opponent has 2 islands untapped. Oh, they have 2 more lands than I do? Those phase out. So, in theory, I have not playtested with this card, but in theory, this can be very good because it's an upkeep trigger. You can prevent people from countering your spells. You can open yourself up for more attacks. You can... Maybe there's a stacks piece on board that you can phase out for the turn. Something like... This is an upkeep trigger. So let's say like Thalia or... What's it called? The Amethyst artifact that makes the spells cost 1 more also. Things like that. I feel like this is just a good enough generic card that it definitely at least fits in your Enchantress strategies. And I would say probably more than that. I think this is a good enough card to warrant definitely more than 263 decks. Up next, we've got Noxious Vapors. 1 black sorcery. Each player reveals his or her hand and chooses 1 card of each color from it, then discards all other non-land cards. This is only in 228 decks. I feel like this is so much better than that. Like, Tergrid 100% wants this card, right? This hoses monocolored decks. The new... What's she called? The new Praetor that's coming out in Dominaria that I can't think of the name of, that maybe I'll think of the name of her in a minute. but she's going to really want this card, I feel like. I just feel like 0% is not enough. Once again, feeling like a broken record, but this card, I feel like it's so good. Right? Croxa wants this card, I feel like. Tiny Bones. Like, I don't know, man. Shieldred. That's the name of the card. And on that note, we're going to pass to Total War. This is 3 in a red enchantment. Whenever any player declares an attack, destroy all untapped non-wall creatures that player controls that don't attack. And then you don't destroy the creatures that had to come in at the, after your upkeep. So this basically forces your opponents to attack. Let's say you're playing a Krenko deck. You have a shit ton of tokens, and you can have lethal as long as your opponents are tapped out completely. I feel like this is worth the run. Like, if they don't attack, their creatures are going to get blown up. So, I don't know. 407 decks doesn't seem like that much for that kind of effect. This is an Ice Age card. This is a card I had never heard of before looking for this list, actually. I don't know, man. It just kind of forces your opponents to attack. And I think that's a good thing in any aggro strategy. Having your opponent's creatures be tapped is always a good thing. On to the next one. We have Leona and Shikari, 1 and a white creature, cat soldier. She says you may activate equip abilities anytime you can cast an instant. That's crazy to me. She's a 2/2 if that's relevant at all. That's crazy to me. I've never seen this card in my life. I've seen countless Voltron strategies, but never Leona and Shikari. It's in 8,311 decks. That's still low. I feel like it definitely should be more. I know this only belongs in Voltron decks, so that big broad number down there kind of doesn't fit for this. But only being in 1% of decks, I feel like this should definitely be in like 100% of white Voltron decks. This is such a crazy card to me that I've never seen it before. And it's so new, too. It came out in 2017. I feel like I should be seeing this more. I've played against countless Voltron decks that are in white. I don't know, man. On to the next one. We have Vengeful Dreams. I believe this is the last card I'm going to be talking about today. This is an instant for white. It says, as an additional cost to play Vengeful Dreams, discard X cards from your hand, and then you remove X target attacking creatures from the game. This is only in 144 decks. I understand that white has such great removal, man. White is so good at removing things. But in a graveyard strategy and a discard strategy, I feel like this card definitely deserves a slot. Removing X target attacking creatures. So you're exiling that many creatures from the game. I feel like that's such a good effect. They get no benefit. They get nothing. You just discard a couple cards from your hand. If you're playing out of your graveyard, I feel like this is definitely worth a run. Definitely belongs in more than 144 decks. So I think this was the last? Yes. Okay, so thank you guys for watching. I know this video probably wasn't the best. I literally made it on Google Slides. Once again, I don't know how to edit. Once again, go check out EDH Deck Building, guys. He's got that. You know what I mean? Alright, probably not. But you will know what I mean when you check him out. His YouTube channel is going to be in the description. As well as the list of cards that I mentioned today. Beyond that, if you enjoyed watching this video, please like and subscribe, guys. Like I said at the beginning of the video, I personally find people who say that kind of cringe. But maybe I should start saying it, I don't know. I feel like I did put effort into this. I sat here for 3 hours figuring out how to do this. It took me way longer than it should have. But that is what it is, Hope you guys enjoyed the video. I put, good bit of effort into it. This is the first kind of video of this style that I've made. I'm hoping to be able to make more. And I'm hoping to make more soon. I'm also hoping to do some pod gameplay on the channel. I got a buddy who has like a camera set up with microphones and everything. We can go over there, record some games, jam out. Hopefully you guys get to see that relatively soon. Besides all that, once again, thank you guys for watching. Hope to see you in the next video.